So in 1902, Joe Gans, who was already known as the Old Master, was finally the world champion. And he didn't put his title on the shelf like some champions do. He actually fought 16 times in 1902. He fought some all-time greats like Dave Holly, Jack Blackburn, who later became the trainer of the heavyweight champion Joe Louis. Gans also fought Sam Langford. He fought all the best fighters. He was so good that he would dispatch his opponents fairly easily and travel from town to town and win all his fights.
Bobby Dobbs, Dave Holly, Sam Langford, Elbows McFadden, and the early left hook artist Dow Hawkins were among the other great fighters that Gans fought in numerous bouts over the Old Master's long career.
Joe Gans had an uninterrupted reign as lightweight champion from 1902 to 1908. However, when we were researching the book, we noticed that some of the record books erroneously showed that he lost the title in 1904 to Jimmy Britt. What happened was that Jimmy Britt and Joe Gans fought, and Britt came rushing out of his corner, tackling Joe Gans and fouling him in various ways. The referee disqualified Britt and gave the fight to Gans. However, some West Coast newspapers started saying that Britt had made a better showing in the fight, and they started calling Jimmy Britt the lightweight champion. Sir James, as James Britt called himself, ended up losing the title in 1905 to Battling Nelson.
In 1904, he outboxed world welterweight champion Barbados Joe Walcott. However, the bout was called a draw. Gans did not make much of a dispute, since the welterweight championship at that time did not make for lucrative fight purposes. While Britt and Nelson claimed the lightweight championship, Joe Gans couldn't get fights either at lightweight or welterweight. Boxing was outlawed in the major East Coast cities during the early 1900s because of the Joe Gans fixed fight with Terry McGovern, and also because of the fixed fight between Gentleman Jim Corbett and Kid McCoy. Boxing moved west, first to San Francisco, California, and then to Nevada. The professional prize fighters at the turn of the 20th century were the true gunslingers of the Old West. The gunfights that are glorified in the movies were few and far between, if for no other reason than the fact that a single loss would end the career of a gunfighter. The boxers, on the other hand, could provide entertainment on a regular basis.
In the shootout of the OK Corral. So there you have the Clantons versus the Earps. You have the lawmen versus the lawless. And what happens after the 80s, then you have these lawmen moving into a different area. And that area, they become, as the boxers move in that those 2 decades really of the 1880s, 1890s, and 1910. By 1889, you have the last bare-knuckle fight between Jake Kilrain and John L. Sullivan, and that was in Richburg, Mississippi. Again, an out-of-the-way place because boxing is not considered a legal sport, and it was always on the fringes of society. And then it moved farther and farther west. Of course, the Barbary Coast, San Francisco, became a mecca of boxing. But the last bare-knuckle fight, 1889, and then we have the glove boxing matches after that. And of course, Gans started and rose during that period of the 1890s. And then he was in the forefront of that by 1891. But where were the lawmen? Where were the Earps? Where was Bat Masterson? Where was Judge Roy Bean, the law west of the Pecos? They were the third men in the ring. They were the referees. They were the lawmen in the battles to come, the real battles of the great fighters of the late 1800s. And the boxers then closed out that wonderful period of the Old West. And after that, then you have the 20s coming in, but they played a very important role in the Old West.
It would have been better for Gans's health if he had continued fighting at the higher weight, but the big money purses in the lightweight division beckoned. By 1906, the lightweight championship was claimed by the rugged Dane battling Nelson. This actually ended up being fortuitous for Gans in a certain way because there were basically two lightweight champions. There was Joe Gans, who was the real lineal lightweight champion, and then by 1906 there was battling Nelson, who was in effect the white lightweight champion. And both sides had their claimants and their supporters. And so, as we'll see later, it ended up creating a big money match showdown in Goldfield, Nevada in 1906 between the two lightweight champions.
Some gold miners in the state of Nevada had the idea of bringing together boxing, gold mining, and the new invention of the motion picture. This would be a grand adventure which would set the stage for the major million-dollar gate sporting events of the 20th century.
Gans was the best fighter in the world at that time, but there were lingering doubts about whether he would intentionally lose if the price was right. This gave rise to a mafia-like incident.
They made Joe Gans an offer he couldn't refuse. Before the fight in Nevada, the Nevada investors took Gans aside and told him, "Look, Joe, your backers are going to bet a ton of money on you, and you must win. Otherwise, they're going to think you faked, and they'll kill you sure." Gans said he would do his best, and then he said, "I can beat Nelson with one hand tied behind my back."